When you were 7, summer felt endless. 2 months of school being out felt like an entire separate lifetime. You built things, explored new streets, learned new skills, and by the time September rolled back around, you felt like a completely different person. When you're a kid, time is enormous. Now New Year's arrives, you blink, and stores are putting up Halloween decorations. You blink again, and someone is asking what you're doing for Thanksgiving. Whole years just evaporate. And here's the thing that nobody really talks about. There's one specific reason this is happening that goes way deeper than just getting older. And it has nothing to do with how busy you are. I'll get to that in a minute. But first, if you learned something from this video, please leave a like and subscribe to Ink Theory. Now, let's start with the strangest part. Mathematically, your years really do become smaller. In the late 1800s, the French philosopher Paul Janet described an idea now commonly called the proportional theory of time. The basic logic is simple. When you're 10, 1 year represents 1/10 of your entire life. When you're 50, 1 year represents 1/50th. For a 5-year-old, a year equals 20% of everything they've experienced. For a 50-year-old, it equals 2%. The clock hasn't changed. The year still contains the same number of days. But compared with the life behind you, it occupies much less psychological territory. Think of your life as a bookshelf. At age 5, adding 1 year means adding an enormous new volume to a very short shelf. At age 50, that same volume slides into a collection that already fills the wall. This helps explain why childhood years can feel so large in memory, but proportional theory is only a useful mental model. Your brain doesn't literally divide each year by your age and then adjust the playback speed. To understand why some stretches of life feel fuller than others, we have to look at what your brain records. A clock measures time by counting identical units. Your brain does something very different. It reconstructs time from attention, change, and memory. One useful way to imagine this is that your brain behaves less like a stopwatch and more like an editor. It takes an enormous stream of experience and divides it into meaningful events. A door opens, a conversation begins, the location changes, something unexpected happens, a decision is made. Those boundaries help organize memory. When a period contains many distinct moments, it leaves behind more mental landmarks. Looking back, the period can feel long and detailed. When very little changes, there are fewer landmarks. The days blend together. This is why time can feel different while you're living it than it does when you remember it. A boring meeting may feel endless in the moment because you're watching every second crawl past. But when you look back, a month later it occupies almost no space in memory. A vacation may fly by while it's happening. But afterward, it can feel surprisingly large because your brain stored new places, meals, conversations, problems, and surprises. Researchers sometimes call this kind of reversal the holiday paradox. Experienced time and remembered time are not the same thing. And that distinction matters because when people say that entire years are disappearing, they usually aren't describing a broken internal stopwatch. They're describing a lack of memorable boundaries. Childhood is packed with firsts. Your first day at a new school, your first sleepover, your first time riding a bike without help, your first visit to a new city, your first realization that adults do not in fact know what they're doing. Because so much is unfamiliar, children have to pay close attention. They're constantly learning the rules of rooms, people, objects, language, and social situations. The brain can't simply say, I know this scene. File it with the others. It has to process what is different. Adulthood often contains fewer firsts. You know how the commute works. You know what the grocery store looks like. You know how the meeting will begin. You may even know which coworker will say, let's circle back, shortly before contributing nothing else. Familiarity is useful. It allows the brain to operate efficiently. But efficiency has a side effect. Repeated experiences can become less distinctive in memory. This does not mean the brain stops recording routine life completely, and it does not mean every new experience automatically slows time. The broader point is that novelty gives the brain more differences to notice. More differences create more memory anchors, and more anchors can make a period feel denser when you look back on it. That brings us to the force that compresses so much of adult life: routine. Imagine 2 weeks. During the first week, you wake up at the same time, take the same route, sit at the same desk, eat familiar meals, watch familiar shows, and go to sleep. Nothing is necessarily wrong with the week. It may even be pleasant. But when you try to remember it later, Monday has very little separating it from Tuesday. Tuesday blends into Wednesday. The whole week gets stored as one general category. Now imagine a second week. You visit a neighborhood you've never seen. You attend an unfamiliar event. You meet someone new. Your car breaks down. You get lost. You try a food you cannot identify with complete confidence. That week may feel chaotic while it's happening. But later it takes up more space in memory because it contains distinct scenes. Routine compresses, novelty separates. This also explains why long periods of stable adult life can feel strangely short in retrospect. You may have lived through 5 complete years. But if many of the days followed similar patterns, memory does not preserve each one as a separate chapter. It creates a summary. Work, home, weekends, repeat. That summary is efficient, but it can leave you with the unsettling feeling that the years vanished. And modern technology may make that compression easier. You pick up your phone for a minute, then you look up, and 45 minutes have gone missing. This feels strange because scrolling contains a huge amount of stimulation. New faces, new sounds, new jokes, new arguments, new disasters, and a person you've never met reorganizing a refrigerator with military precision. Your attention is busy, but your physical situation barely changes. You're in the same chair, holding the same rectangle, performing the same motion. The content changes rapidly, but many individual items receive only a few seconds of attention before they're replaced. That combination can create a weak memory trail. You experienced constant input, but very little became a durable episode with a clear beginning, middle, and end. When you stop scrolling, you know that something occupied your attention. You just may not remember much of it. This does not mean every use of social media damages your perception of time. Watching a meaningful video, talking with a friend, or deliberately learning something can create lasting memories. The problem is more specific. Prolonged passive consumption can occupy time without giving that time much structure. It fills the present while leaving the past surprisingly empty. So if proportion, familiarity, and fragmented attention all compress life, is there anything you can do? You cannot make a year represent a larger percentage of your life again, but you can give the year more landmarks. The goal is not to make every day extraordinary. That would be exhausting. It would also make extraordinary the new routine. The goal is to introduce enough novelty and attention that your brain has reasons to separate one period from another. The first method is simple. Create more firsts. Take a different route. Visit a part of your town you normally pass by. Cook something unfamiliar. Go to a museum, class, park, event, or restaurant you have never tried. The change does not have to be dramatic. A small break in the pattern can create a new marker on the timeline. The second method is to stay inside a learning curve. When you begin learning an instrument, a language, a sport, or any difficult skill, your attention becomes more precise. At first, everything requires effort. You notice tiny improvements, repeated mistakes, unfamiliar terms, and small breakthroughs. The process creates chapters. The week you learned the first chord, the month you held a basic conversation. The afternoon, something finally clicked. Learning gives time a visible shape. The third method is deliberate attention. Even familiar experiences contain detail, but routine teaches us to ignore it. Notice the temperature of the air when you leave home. Pay attention to the sound of a room before anyone speaks. Taste the coffee instead of drinking it while reading 12 unrelated notifications. This is not about remaining intensely mindful every second. No one needs to examine a sandwich as if it contains the secrets of the universe. It is about occasionally telling your brain, this moment is worth recording. And there is one more method that may matter just as much. Involve other people. Conversations, shared activities, and relationships produce unpredictable moments. Other people interrupt the script. A solitary routine can repeat almost perfectly. A social experience rarely does. You do not need constant excitement, you need differentiation. Because the opposite of a fast-feeling life is not necessarily a busy life. It is a life with identifiable chapters. Here's the real takeaway. You cannot change the math of aging. Your sense of time is shaped by how many changes you notice, how clearly your brain separates events, and how many distinct memories remain afterward. Routines are efficient. They help you move through the day without analyzing every doorknob and traffic light. But when too many days follow the same pattern, the brain can compress them into a summary. The time was lived, but little of it remains clearly labeled. Try something unfamiliar. Go somewhere different. Pay full attention for a moment. Give the week a feature that separates it from the week before. The years are going to pass either way. The only question is how many frames you'll actually remember.